In today's video, I am working on, in my art journal, on top of a page that is collaged. And my whole intention around this one is to go back to the parts that I really love, which is neutrals, texture, and working on top of an already started page. So even though a lot of the page doesn't end up showing through, a little bit does. And I feel like all the layers add depth and make an interest, even if you can't clearly see it. It's just part of the overall, the bigger picture, I guess, is what I want to say. So for me, this today was just like, okay, I want to work on this in my art journal. I really want to get back to neutrals. I really want to keep it simple, but I want a lot of texture, and I want to showcase just the simplicity, I guess, but also, I guess, the texture. I guess I keep talking about that. So anyway, it's a simple exercise, but one in which you could use whatever colors that you're really drawn to. For example, I'll go over the whole thing in white, and you certainly could, but then you could choose your other colors. I used a bone black and a brown, and then a red iron oxide. So you could choose your three colors and then do a simple exercise very similar to that. But I think the thing is to own your own colors and to figure out what your color palette is and the colors that you really love and that you're attracted to. So when what made me think of this was I was on Pinterest and I kept seeing these art journal pages or paintings or things that were like white, neutral, but then had texture and then had a little bit of black or brown or something. And I thought, I just kind of want to get back to that. That just feels really good to me, and that feels like something that's me. And so I would just really encourage you to find the colors that you love, and then not that you stick with it, because I think it's important to explore other colors and to try new things. But sometimes it's okay, and I think you should kind of follow the path of the things that you love, because that will lead you to your art, to your style, to all the things that are inherent in you when you're making your art. So anyway, I won't belabor the point, but definitely I think find your color palette and try to go down a path with it, at least temporarily. At least give it a try. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. To get started, I think, well, I'm working in an art journal, a spiral bound art journal, obviously, and there is a ton of collage down, mostly neutral papers, book papers and things like that. But I thought before I put the white paint on, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with white paint. It looks like there's already maybe some Titan Buff or something on here, but I'm going to cover it pretty thickly in the white paint. I thought I would make a few marks. Now, I love these Lyra pencils. This one is non-water soluble. I often and usually actually use my water soluble one, but I thought, well, if I make some marks with this one, it won't maybe disappear, and maybe it'll show through at the end. Maybe none of these marks will show up at the end. I don't really know. I'm keeping very neutral palette. So I'm just going to, I don't know, just see what feels good, right? That's all we can do. And so just some lines and some things like that. Okay. I also have a few oil pastels, neo pastel. They're creamy and great. And I have one in brown and one in black. And I thought it would be fun just to add some in. Now, what happens and I like that number, so I think I'll leave it there. What happens when you put acrylic over an oil pastel is you can scrape back and see this. Most people would say, oh, you absolutely can't do that. And maybe you can't, but I do it. And I'm not saying it's archival. I'm not saying it will last forever, but I am saying it can have a cool result. And I have frequently done that in my own art. So, and again, who knows if my art will last beyond any time. But again, I think that's fine. I was at I'm trying to think where I was, art museum, and some of the old, classical painters, they did their art on cardboard, and it's still with us today. So I'm just saying, not that I put myself in that category, but I guess I just don't really worry. I just am willing to try things and see what happens. Okay, I've used up black a lot. Let's try with the brown one more time. I'm just making very, very simple shapes and just kind of seeing what sounds and feels good. Obviously, simple shapes work for me. I like circles. I like T's or plus signs. I like X's. I think because they're so easy to make, anybody can do it, right? You can't tell me you can't make art. If you can make a circle, you can make art. Okay, so that's it for the mark making. I'm gonna set those aside, and then I'm gonna get out my white paint. It's a little bit heavy body, just the Liquitex Basics. I don't like it quite as well, the regular heavy body professional grade. It is a little more affordable, and so sometimes that's the key. It's like, what is it within my price point, or what is on sale? And that sometimes, and this white paint works fine. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna set this over here so I can put this, hopefully it's all on camera here. I really wanna cover it fairly heavily, and I'm gonna come back in with only like a black, yeah, so most of this probably won't show, but maybe I'll scrape back and see if I can reveal some spots. I'm gonna just use black and brown, I think. Because those, I find that what happens is I get influenced by other people. It's like, well, I really like this really neutral, basic palette, but yet well, we're all influenced by other people. So, so sometimes you got to come back to what you like and what you love the best. Now this is going to have to dry. This is pretty thick. I put this paint on pretty thick, and I probably will make some marks in it, scratch out some here real quick before I let it dry. I might actually take I have a heat gun. I don't know if I will or not though, because it's kind of, sometimes I don't like, sometimes it dries on the surface, but it doesn't dry underneath, and it kind of has a weird effect. Okay, I was gonna take my color shaper, but I think I'm gonna start, I have these mark making tools. They're actually pottery tools, which I use a lot. They're great for making all kinds of marks and shapes and things in your art. And see, as this scratches in, it's great. And probably some of you are like, what's the point of putting all that collage down if you're just gonna cover it up? And it was pretty cool, and I did make some great marks. I just feel like every layer adds to the next layer and makes something, it just makes it richer and there's more depth to it. So yeah, it probably in some ways doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I think in my opinion, it can make a lot of sense. Now I'm just kind of looking at shapes that I have already on here and kind of just emulating those. And so also sometimes there's shapes that I'm more drawn to. And if I'm gonna do a shape, I sometimes like to do it a few times to make it a little bit wonkier. I think I'm gonna carry this all the way across, because now that I think about it, it might be kind of cool across this bottom part here. And maybe I want some a little longer than others, because when they're all the same, it's not quite as interesting. And I do like things like fences, and this kind of seems like a fence, doesn't it? I'm just wondering if there's a few spots I should scrape back just to reveal a little bit underneath. What do you think? Let's see. Just to make it a little more interesting. Okay. So yeah, you put that paint on and then you take it off, and then, now that didn't come off quite as well. There we go. Kind of like that. Because there is just, but if it was all revealed, sometimes it's not quite as interesting. Okay, maybe I want a big chunk of this down here to be revealed. There we go. Okay, now look, I have this paint. What should I do with it? I'm gonna go grab, I have like always at the ready old books that I use as collage paper, because I'm not gonna waste any of that paint. Now the other thing is, sometimes I don't like having every line be exact, so I might come in and smooth out some of the lines just to make it a little more interesting. Or kind of, if it impacts the lines a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now this needs to dry, and like I said, it's pretty thick, and I'm not sure, maybe I'll scrape a little bit. Now I'm into it. Okay, I'm gonna scrape right there and right there. I can't stop myself because maybe there's a little X there. Okay. Okay, stop. I want this mostly white. and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry, and then I will be back. We're gonna use either some black or brown or both, just to see what happens. The minute I turned the camera off, I realized I didn't like all the tiny little shapes, and so I started messing with it. So I'm sorry I didn't do that on camera. So I decided I didn't want, I mean, there are still a bunch of little ones, but there were a few right in the middle I didn't like, and I wanted some different kind of shapes, and even this one maybe I'll make a little bit longer. I think having the differences makes it look more interesting versus, like, this is a small, I don't know, 10 by 12 or whatever, 9 by 12 page. And if you just have a bunch of tiny little things, I don't know, it can feel very like everything's the same. And so I think it's kind of cool to have like a big part and some different shape parts revealed. And then I went down here and kind of pulled off, thought the bottom might be kind of cool to have it a little bit more revealed. So we'll see what happens. I just wanted to show you what I did, and then now I'm gonna let it dry. I finally got this dry, and I did have to use a heat gun, or I'd probably be finishing this video tomorrow. Paint was thick, and we're now in the cooler time of the year here in Seattle, and so things don't dry quite as quickly. But anyway, so this is dry. I've decided to use slightly different blacks and browns than I normally do. I'm using the bone black, which is it's more transparent black, and it also kind of has a brown undertone to it. And then I'm also using the Van Dyke brown hue, which is different shade than the raw umber that I normally use, because I thought, it's good to kind of mix it up. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to play how this is going to play out, or exactly what I'm going to do. I had a couple different ideas, and now in my mind I'm kind of switching it up. I'm thinking maybe I'll do kind of this fence area black, and then I might wipe it off. So I have this big, and it's a little tacky here still, so that's okay, it might just mix in. So I have this mop brush, and I'm gonna get it a little bit wet so that when I put the black paint down here, it is very runny and kind of is more like a glaze. Okay, so that's very subtle, but it's not really subtle. I mean, there's some high contrast there. So now I got to decide, where do I want to put? I want to put the brown, and maybe I do a wash on the top. Let's just see. I wasn't thinking I would just do a wash. I was thinking I would just do sections. Well, it doesn't matter, because you obsess over things, and it's like, if I don't like it, I just paint over it. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to go over the whole thing. I'm just going to go for it, because it doesn't matter. And I think that's the thing we get hung up on in our art. We like, oh, I really like that, and now I'm obsessing on it, and I can't keep going because I'm too attached to it. And I think we have to remember, if we did it once, we can do it again. And even if it was hard, and even if it's not exactly the same, we can do it, and maybe even better. So this one I am going to wipe off, and I have kind of one of these blue shop kind of paper towels. They're a little more hardy than just your kitchen towel, although the kitchen paper towels work just fine too. Actually, okay, I'm just gonna, okay, wipe it, just go for it. Okay, so because I want a little more contrast, I'm gonna spray some water on here, and I'm gonna wipe it again. And I kind of like how parts of it are darker than others. Now, I did, on a whim, I pulled out this transparent red iron oxide, and I was like, this could be kind of fun. It's a little scary to use when I really said I was going to stick with these real basic neutrals, but I'm thinking maybe right along here. Let's just do it. If you don't try it, you'll never know. Okay, so I'm going to use this paintbrush here. And oh, look at that. It almost looks like the quinacridone, I can't even say it, quinacridone nickel azo gold that Golden doesn't make anymore, but this is very close to that. I'm hesitating. So let's go along this line here, okay? Let's just see what happens.
Then look, I left this bottom part, but should that be black too? Maybe it should. Let's just do it. Do it a very light black. Then gives me a minute to think. I don't think it should be the same, but I do like a little bit of that. Okay, there we go. Okay, I wish you guys were here to kind of advise me. I'm indecisive sometimes, and I feel like that's too watery right there. I think in general, I don't know that I'll put it anywhere else. I keep adding a little bit there. Do I add a little bit more brown? Let's grab some water. Do I add a little bit more brown, like to some of these spots though, and just let it pool? Maybe. Like up here. That way, there is some more interest that goes around. And even right here in the middle, I don't want it to all be exactly the same, tonally. I want some to be different values, light and dark and that kind of thing. But I also want it to be interesting in that you would want to look at it up there. This kind of pooled up in a weird way. I think because the paint underneath maybe isn't quite dry. But that's unique. That's also interesting to try too. Like, oh, it's not exactly what I thought, but I like it. And now that I do that, what if I added a little bit like of just kind of a little speckles? Okay, I kind of like that. Just very, very subtle. Okay, I might come back in down here again. It's kind of like add some, take some away, add some, take some away. But that's pretty much it. And I do like this. I like how neutral it is. I like the little pop of the red iron oxide, but it is overall fairly neutral, but very interesting with all the texture and with the book paper, some of the book paper coming through. So I'm kind of like, okay, do I add a little bit of this black somewhere else? So I'm going to do one more thing here. I think I'm going to grab some more water. I'm going to add in just a little bit more black, I think. I think it turned out great. I mean, it's very simple, but I feel like this is kind of a little bit more my style. Maybe this is a little too much. I can pull that back a little bit. In terms of neutrals, texture, collage, it has all the elements that I feel like are really me, and I think that's true for you too. I hope that you kind of think about the colors that you really like and then incorporate those. And even though we're influenced by other artists and other people and what they're making, and we like that, sometimes it's good just to be true to who you are and stick with those things. And interestingly, most of these things didn't really show through, but that doesn't mean that they don't add, that there is an interest. And I can see some circles down here, and I'm sure that added to the depth of it.